Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to speak with you about how spiritual transmission is a river of light in theory and in practice, which means I'm going to give you a description of what I mean, and then I'm going to talk about how to bring that into your experience with spiritual traditions, teachers, communities, so that you can open and receive what it is they have to offer more fully. I think that this is a general teaching for life. I'm going to speak about it in the context of religion and spirituality, but please don't hesitate to apply it everywhere. When I think about my experience with my teachers, I think about, of course, the teachings that they gave on a wide variety of topics. But really, the first thing that comes to mind is their kind of Shakti field or their Sat field. What it felt like to be in their presence when they were in spiritual teacher mode. If you're familiar with being with spiritual teachers, with some degree of attainment, who embody that teacher archetype, you'll know what I mean when it's like the spiritual energy or the energy in the room is like thick. It can feel like a lot of sensation, not just in the body, but around the body. It can feel like a pressure coming down. It can be very uncomfortable as much as it is quite enlivening. For someone who hasn't had this experience before, but who knows what it's like to be on entheogens or hallucinogens, sometimes there's a similar bodily quality on those. It's not that the visual or kind of sensory field is distorted, though that could happen around a teacher with a strong enough kind of transmission, but that the feeling in the body, that as you come on the hallucinogen or entheogen and it kind of comes on, there's like a discomfort, there's like an energy, there's an expansion. And this is at least analogous to what it's like to be with a spiritual teacher who, again, has a strong Shakti field or Sat field. And the reason that I'm starting this teaching this way is because when I talk about spiritual transmission being a river of light, this is the thing I'm talking about first and foremost. Because as I've sat with my teachers in the Sat fields or the Shakti fields that they generate, my teachers have also sat with their teachers and their teachers with their teachers, and on and on and on to the beginning. And when I say the beginning, I mean that mythologically. So you can see the image that I've set up here. Teachers to students who become teachers to students who become teachers to students who are us, right? And from the beginning, there is a transmission of light. There is a transmission of light from one to the next and one to the next. And I want you to really feel that. I want you to really feel that. Because there's a quality that when we are with a spiritual teacher, again, of some degree of attainment, who really has that teacher archetype, we are in a long line of transmission, and we can actually feel the good company of all the teachers and practitioners that have come before us, of all the work that they've done to embody light, to self-realize, yes, but then also to distill so many experiences into teachings that get passed down and get passed down and get passed down. And so when we sit with a teacher, we are not only in their company, we are in the company of all of the teachers, of all of the traditions, of all of the vidyas, the knowledges, the teachings that sit in their field. And we are in good company. We are in good company. It's kind of like in therapy, again, to make another analogy, I often will say to people and my clients, here we are sitting together, but really there's a lot more people in this room, isn't there? Right? Your parents are here, your siblings are here, the people who have had significant impacts on you, whether for good or for ill, are here in the room with us. It's a full house. Same thing with spiritual teachers and communities. It's a full house. It's a full house. And in more ways than I've described here. So spiritual transmission is a river of light. And now you can kind of get more of a sense of what I mean when I say that. And to call upon the support of any lineage, again, spiritual tradition that you step into, any teacher and community that impacts you in a deep way, stepping into the full support, expanding your awareness and your sense to include all that is present with that tradition, with that teacher, with that community. Because we don't awaken alone. We don't heal alone. We don't live alone. I remember hearing one of my tantric teachers say, one of the primary principles in spirituality is relationship. And I was like, yeah, wow. Thank you so much for saying that. Relationship as it pertains to spiritual teacher and student, as it pertains to students, to other students, right? Peers, as it pertains to ourselves with God, ourselves with many different kinds of benevolent, subtle beings, ancestors, right? One of the primary principles of spirituality is relationship. And so spiritual transmission is a river of light. It's a river of light that we're stepping into, baptizing ourselves even, receiving. And so that's kind of the theory. Let's move into practice. What does this really mean? I want to take a phrase that comes from the Christian tradition. If you're a choir person, like I was briefly, and you've sung a mass, you know this phrase. It's Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. And it roughly translates to Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. And even as I say the phrase, because I kind of prepared, I can immediately feel that energy enliven in my field. And I'm going to describe a little bit more of what I mean by that. But let's just say it together. Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. As I say that, I feel a kind of energy descending down. I feel sensation on the crown of my head. I can feel it moving down my central channel even more as I describe it. And this is the transmission coming through the Christian tradition, one of many, that has to do with the divine virtue quality of mercy. I don't know if this virtue quality is transmitted anywhere as poignantly as it is in Christianity. Maybe Buddhism with their tradition of bodhisattvas. And so as I say this, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, you can, because I'm living in the transmission, you can step into that with me. You can step into that with me. It's available. You, of course, don't need me to do that. But because I've embodied this to some degree, it's more available in the field, right? So spiritual transmission is a river of light. Another way to talk about it is a standing waveform. And I want you to feel that for a minute, because let's take a moment and really deepen in the fact that as I say Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, or translate it into English and say, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, I am drawing on a kind of mantra, if you will, in the Christian tradition that has been said, that has been practiced, that has been chanted by, what would you say, hundreds of millions of practitioners over 2,000 years? Maybe more than that. That's powerful. So a standing waveform means that this is a sound form, right? Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. This is a sound form that has been anchored into the energy field of the plane over literally a couple thousand years by many different teachers, by many different practitioners, by many different communities. And the moment that we say it, we are standing in the inheritance, in the momentum of the river of light, in the power of the standing waveform that has been generated over the centuries and over the couple of millennia that this has been used. So that's just one example, right? Another might be one that I really love from Islam, right? One of the first statements of the Shahada, right? Or the kind of testament of faith is La ilaha illallah. And if anybody is a Muslim and speaks Arabic, please, I apologize for slaughtering the pronunciation, but La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God, right? And of course, the second part of that statement is Muhammadin Rasulullah, and Muhammad is his prophet, right? But let's just speak with this La ilaha illallah, and I'm not going to go into this as deeply as I did the last one, but there is no God but God. There is no God but God. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. There's a quality of opening to the absolute. There's no God but God. Right? There's no God but God. There's only one. There's only one. The absolute nature of the divine, as we say that phrase. As we say that phrase. And I promise you, saying phrases in their original language is lovely, but saying them translated is equally as powerful. Is equally as powerful. So don't worry about language so much. Don't worry about language so much. Don't get stuck on that. Because why? Because it is about the river of light. And light can come into sound forms, particular sound forms, right, in the Arabic, as well as it can English. This is stepping out of the kind of gross structure, the particular language that it's spoken into the subtle form of the transmission itself, which is what comes down to us. Right? And of course, something like La ilaha illallah, there's no God but God, has many possible vectors of transmission, depending on what's coming into the space. I gave you one. And that would be true of any of these kinds of transmission phrases. So let's then talk about being with a teacher, because it doesn't just have to be these transmission phrases. Teachers will be like I am right now, spitballing, if you will. They are freestyling. They're just in the flow of whatever transmission is coming in the moment, and you can begin to open to that. You're listening to the words that they're saying for their semantic meaning, right? Kind of what the teacher is intending to communicate. But then you can kind of open and expand and feel what they are transmitting as they communicate what they're communicating. And this is very, very, very powerful because it's so easy. Trust me, I've done it so many times, to get stuck up in the mind trying to capture what it is the teacher is saying. And that's valid. That's a valid level of the teaching. But while we're doing that, we can get maybe a little contracted in the subtle body. We make the subtle body a bit gross. And by doing that, we're actually missing the wider transmission that's taking place in the field in that moment. And this is very powerful because as a teacher is transmitting, we can, again, try to really hear what they're saying, but even more importantly, I think we can open into the river of light, right? That they are bringing forward in that moment. And we can just soak. You can get a sense of that, right? What a different quality that is to like, all right, I'm going to listen to this person. I'm going to really hear them to like, oh, I'm just going to soak here. This is kind of a nice vibe. This is a kind of a nice vibe. It's so funny. One of my sister-in-law, I was just leaving her home and she was saying, you know, you can keep Aaron around for the vibes. And she was saying, like, you know, Aaron, you're like good for a lot of things, but like most of all for vibes. And I love this, just to use like a really normal everyday example to give you a sense. We're in vibes all the time, okay? Right? Being with spiritual teachers and communities, a particular kind of vibe. It can be a rather intense kind of vibe, as I said earlier, right? I think that specific teachings and vidyas, right, particular practices and knowledges that people can pass down are of incredible importance. But when we talk about self-realization, when we talk about awakening, really even when we talk about healing and living, it's someone's vibe, most of all, just like being in the presence of their field, whether that's in person or remotely, that is one of the most powerful ingredients. And like, praise God. Because there's a simplicity to that. There's a simplicity to just showing up and being in the presence of. So this is kind of the practice portion, right? I gave you the theory, I'm giving you the practice, and I want to say one more thing before I conclude. And that's that the river of light is all of life. The river of light is all of life. I want to say it one more time. The river of light is all of life. We are not doing religion or doing spirituality when we show up to satsang, right? Gathering in the presence of the truth, listening to a talk and then a Q&A with a teacher, or go on retreat, any more so than we are in our everyday lives, right? Ultimately, life is the river of light. It is right here in this moment, in this place, right? In this eternal now, that we receive the river of light, or that we invoke, or really are, the standing waveform of realization. Right? This is a little bit of a non-dual transmission. There's nowhere to be. There's no one to be. There's nothing to do. Just here. Just now. Just here. Just now. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a like. And if you're interested in more content like this, please subscribe. Comments, questions, concerns, just want to troll me. Comment section is right below. And if you're interested more to learn more about me and my services as a psycho-spiritual counselor, you can find the link to my website in the description. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. You take good care, and I hope to see you next time.